Now I'm going to try and say this without getting overexcited, but next week, in 3 days time, we are officially getting into October. October is by far the best month of the year. I cannot tell you enough how much I look forward to this month coming around, because for me, this is when we're in full autumn. I feel like in September, summer kind of lingers about a bit. We always end up getting like at least a hottish, I live in the Scottish Highlands, it's a hottish week in September, and then it's not uncommon for us to get snow in November, so October feels like the month where you just want to throw yourself into everything autumnal, and for me, a big part of that includes reading. So I thought that would be a perfect excuse to indulge in a wee reading vlog this week. So first things first, I need your help in choosing the books I'm going to read in October. I've made a selection from my TBR shelf of books I feel like are appropriate for this month. So if you're new here, you might not know that I tend to read seasonally, so I change up my reading through the year to kind of reflect what's going on in nature. It's not like a strict rule. I do like to allow some flexibility in there and be impulsive occasionally with some of my reading, but I also love to plan my reading because I feel like it makes it something to look forward to, and it means I always have something next to read and stop to get into a reading slump. So I do all my planning on Notion. I actually sell a bookworm planner. Yeah, I sell a bookworm reading planner on my Etsy store. So I'll link that down below if you guys want to check it out. I know quite a few of you have it now, and it's been really lovely to see all your different spreads and stuff on there because Notion is fantastic. I basically create a template and then you guys can make it your own. So I generally have like a season want to read list, and then each month I can kind of pick what I'm vibing for the next few weeks. So I tend to read about a book a week, maybe slightly more. So I've picked up 4, but I also have a book that is available to pick up from the library. I actually have about 4 or 5 books requested from the library at the moment. The library is a fantastic resource, and obviously I like to get library books because it's free, but also it's just great to support our libraries. So I have got one ready to pick up, so I'll take you guys to get that later. And in terms of an overview of what I've chosen, I like to have like one non-fiction in there because I've just finished this book, which is a nature memoir that I talked about in my last vlog, I believe, so I won't go on about it a little bit, but I said how much I'm enjoying it and I still stand by that. It's a really, really lovely book. So for my non-fiction this month, I have chosen this one, which I picked up in my bookish vlog in Aberfeldy a few weeks ago. And again, I talked a little bit about it in that vlog, so I won't go on about it too much, but it's basically a woman who has become separated from her husband and is living alone for the first time. So she's talking about her adjustment with that, you know, that feeling of maybe being a bit more isolated, spending a lot more time alone, but also like digging into what it is to be a hermit, especially in this like modern day age. I think that's a really interesting topic, so I'm looking forward to reading this. And then we cannot have October and not have some sort of mystery book on there, especially a murder mystery. So I am finally going to be reading Agatha Christie's Murder on the Orient Express, which is a library book. I got it last month, and I don't really need to talk about this story. I think we all kind of know the vague plot, which is basically a murder happens on the Orient Express and the murderer is still on the train and needs to be found. So a really fun read for October. The book that I'm to pick up as well is another mystery because that is my favourite genre to read. And then I've got a couple of slightly different reads for October. I tend to get a bit stressed. Not stressed, but I put too much pressure on myself to have the best reading month in October, which I think I need to chill out a little bit because I'm sure I always enjoy my reading overall and I like to read a variety. So I've picked up a couple of books that is quite new to me in terms of genre. So the first one is Secret Society of Irregular Witches. This is like a cozy fantasy. It's a YA novel as well, so I don't read a huge amount of any of that fantasy, cozy fantasy. I read a few YA novels, but I saw this on BookTube. A lot of BookTubers talking about it a year or two ago or last year. It's a fairly new release, and I really wanted to like see how I felt with cozy fantasy. Especially this year, I have read more fantasy than probably my last 2 or 3 years, and I have been enjoying that. So I thought this would be worth a go because it did come highly recommended by a lot of channels that I follow. So this follows a protagonist called Mika, and she tends to live away from other witches normally, tends to live alone, but she ends up getting a job at this house called Nowhere House to teach these young witches, and it's all about her developing relationships with them, I think, with the people in this house. I think there's a wee romance in here as well. I just think it would be a nice variety for me to read. And the last book is this one. I feel like I had to read this in October because look at that cover. It's one of those beautiful covers I've ever seen as well. I actually got this on Vinted. Vinted is becoming a bit lethal for me now when it comes to books. So it's actually a middle grade book. I don't read a huge amount of this type, so I do actually read children's classics fairly regularly. So I've read like a whole load of Enid Blytons and the likes of like Anna Green Gables, just one of my all-time favourite books, and Secret Garden, Alice in Wonderland, that kind of thing. But I don't read much contemporary children's books, so I thought this would be a nice change for me, and this just sounds like a beautiful story as well. It follows a girl called October, and she lives in the woods with her dad, and one day she finds this baby owl, which comes at a time when things are really changing for her. So it's around her 11th birthday, and her dad's had an accident, and as the blurb suggests, the woman that calls herself October's mother comes back into her life. So I think it's following how October deals with all these changes in her life and also her relationship with this owl. She sounds right up my street, and a really lovely story that I'm looking forward to getting into. So in terms of what I'm going to be reading today, I finished this one this morning, so I think I'm going to start this one. It's the one I'm drawn to most at the moment, and later on in this vlog I also want to chat a little bit about some other recent reads, as I have some opinions that might be slightly controversial, so I'm keen to hear what you think. So yeah, I'm excited to get into this, and I hope you enjoyed this cozy reading vlog. It's getting pretty blowy up here, so I hope you can hear me okay. But as you can see, I'm in my wee camper. I've just taken Sky, who sat down next to me, on a walk, and this has become something that I quite like to do. Not every day. I would love to do it every day. I don't have time to do it every day, but on occasion I like to bring up Pips, my wee camper, and then we can make a cup of tea, or I can have a cup of tea, she can have a wee biscuit, and sit and read for a little bit. It's a very peaceful thing to do, and it means I feel like I'm making the most of having a camper. So my chapter into this and first impressions is it seems really lovely. The characters seem really quite charming. I love the tone and vibe of the book, but I'm only a chapter in, so I've not got a huge amount of thoughts beyond that. But it is an October day is when this starts, so I think it's absolutely appropriate for me to be including this in part of my October reading, even if I'm starting it slightly early. So got a quick library haul for you guys. Inevitably I always come out with multiple books when I go to the library. Although 2 of my requests were in, so that's good because I thought only 1 was. First one was the one I came to collect today, and it is The Midnight House by Eve Chase, and this is one of my most anticipated reads for autumn. I think alongside The Secrets of Heartwood Hall, which I read actually at the end of August, which was a 5-star read for me. This is the other one that I was absolutely like buzzing to read. It's quite new, I think. Yeah. It was out this year, 2024, and Eve Chase is fast becoming one of my favourite authors, specifically like a mystery author. First book I read from her was The Glass House, which I really enjoyed. I read that last year, and then this year I read The Birdcage, which was one of my only 5-star reads of the year, so I'm so excited. I think Eve has a fantastic writing style, which means that she has these most beautiful descriptions, but she also has a really like engaging plot. She has great like twisty reveals and also manages to nail really like engaging characters. So I have high hopes with this one. All I know about it is it's to do with a woman who is trying to find her mum, who disappeared years ago with her little brother, and it looks like it's split between 2 timelines and between 2 locations, so one in Notting Hill in London and one in a Parisian apartment. So some really lovely settings, and yeah, I just think, I don't know if it's set in the autumn, but mystery is a fantastic autumn type of book, so really excited about this. And she also always has the most beautiful covers. And then the second book that I requested was The Good Girl's Guide to Murder, A Good Girl's Wife's Guide to Murder even, which I wanted to read for ages. I'm sure some of you heard of this. This is another type of mystery, murder mystery. Again, I think it's YA, where a student ends up digging up information about a murder of another pupil that happened years ago as part of like a school project. And yeah, that's all I really know. But again, great murder mystery. I might have to save this one for my November reading though, because my TBR is getting quite large now for this month. And then my impulse pickup, I always tend to, if I have an impulse pickup, it tends to be a thriller. I think I don't put as many thrillers on my list for some reason. I'm more of a mystery than a thriller person. I read the back of this and it looked good. All I know is it's this therapist ends up finding a baby in the backseat of her car, and she has a suspicion that this is the child of this social media star that previously lived with her or lived in her house, and she thinks that this social media star is now in danger, and obviously she's been lumped with this baby that she's not entirely sure whose it is and why she's been left it. It turns into her Kes trying to track down this woman basically before it's too late. So yeah, good fun sounding thriller, and I just thought it's raining, so that's kind of got given autumnal vibes. I just love reading, and yeah, going to the library just makes me feel so zen. So I want to chat about a couple of books with you guys. The first one being this one. This is The Lamplighters, and it's a mystery based on these lighthouse keepers that go missing in the 70s. I think it's based on a real life mystery, maybe around that time, but I think the rest of the work is pure fiction. And you get in 2 timelines. You get a bit of flashbacks and stuff to leading up to the disappearance, but a lot of the book is centred, I think, is it 20 years later? Yeah, it's 20 years later when a unnamed journalist wants to dig into this mystery more and is interviewing the people left behind, which is primarily the wives and the partners of these 3 lighthouse keepers. So I was quite excited to read this because I'm always excited to read a mystery, but I had left it on my bookshelf for a year. Basically, it's been sitting there since last autumn, which might have been telling because I really did not enjoy this book. And I rarely say that on my channel, but I think it's important to bring up books that you don't enjoy as well, because I don't love everything I read. In fact, the more I read, the more picky I get, which I'm mindful of because I don't want to get picky to the point of ruining the joy of reading, which I don't think I'm near, but I am mindful of it. So I should say, you know, it's not a 1-star write-off, anything like that. I'd probably give it 2.5 maybe, because the writing's lovely. I should say that it's a well-written book in terms of like what I love most about it is like the descriptions of this lighthouse and of the sea. The sea is a very obviously important part and is referenced a lot by the characters. I liked learning or delving into their world of being a lighthouse keeper at that time because, you know, we don't have keepers like we did back then now. I had really good tension through a lot of it, but I think I found the main issue I had with it is I found it quite slow, and I think a lot of that is to do with the format of it, the fact that it was these interviews, because it was a bit of a weird one. It wasn't like a question answer, it was essentially monologues from these partners. You never saw the journalists, like you never knew like their name, they never had any kind of presence until right near the end, which is part of the mystery, I suppose, but to be honest, for me it was like built up to be something that was a bit of a letdown. And yeah, those monologues dragged. I didn't feel like we were getting a lot of new information very quickly. There was a weird, unexpected supernatural element to it that I felt just really took away from it. I don't feel like it added anything, it just added confusion for me. You know, even the ending of how, you know, you do find out, I did think for a while they weren't going to ever find out what happened. You do find out what happened to these 3 men, which, you know, there was tension to it, but I think by that point I just was past caring. I was past caring. So yeah, I just, because I know a few of you have this and want to read this, because maybe I've talked about it, it was on my like autumn to be read list, and I've read like, I've gone in and like read other reviews and thoughts, and a lot of people really like it. So I should say that, you know, that's just my take on it. I can see why people would like it, but for myself, it was a bit of a disappointment. And then another mystery, but a murder mystery again. I've featured me starting this book anyway in a previous vlog, in my Bookers vlog. It's Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. A lot of people, and when I put that vlog out, said that they read it and they loved it. A lot of people said that they've started it, they really liked it. A couple of people said they actually weren't that keen, so it's quite interesting because I only ever heard people rave really about this book before he died. Yeah. As I was saying, I've heard a lot of people rave about this, and I have to say I can see why. I can massively see the appeal. He is a wonderful writer, and if you don't know the plot of this book, it's basically a group of pensioners that live in this retirement home and they end up having to solve a murder. They called themselves the Murder Club, the Thursday Murder Club, beforehand, because they were like getting into solving like hypothetical murders, and then they end up having to solve a real life murder. So it's murder mystery, but it's definitely more of like a cozy, like funny murder mystery. But I would say there's also like quite a lot of heart to it, as you can probably imagine from like older people. You know, he really does dig into that kind of character, that kind of person, what matters to them, and I think really like helps demonstrate human nature, especially people living in the UK. I think there's a lot of like British references in here, and yes, some really funny bits, some really bits I did have a little giggle to myself, but still a very good mystery. You know, I didn't see the reveal, the murderer, I did not get that at all. So I think, yeah, it was really, and even put in some, I think on purpose, he put in some like red herrings where you was like, oh, you know, I thought I was being clever, like I reckon it's this person, and it wasn't. So overall, really good book, and I actually did give it 4 stars. The reason I didn't give it 5 stars was just, I think for me, a 5-star has to be going the extra mile, and I didn't feel like this, for me, did. I suppose it's not a controversial opinion, I'm still giving it 4 stars, still really enjoyed it, but I do think it might be something that I feel is a bit overhyped. I don't think there's anything in this that I'm finding revolutionary. I can see that he's gone at it from a different point of view. I can see the quality of the writing, but this is also his first book, I believe, so it's quite a lot to ask for someone's first book to be like, wow, you know. And there were moments of it that I was like, this is getting a little bit slow, you know. In the middle I was like, and you know, it was funny, but it wasn't like killing myself laughing funny, which not many books are. Actually writing a Substack post, I've written one, it's coming out next week, including the books that made me, etc. One of them was Laugh, and I mentioned some books in there, like really good actually, by Monica someone, I can't remember her last name, I read last year. Howled at that. But then that was about a woman similar to my age learning to date again. Maybe that's something that I just find more funny. I mean, there was one line in here that I was like killing myself, but yeah, I think that's the thing with books that are really hyped. You have to go in it with kind of not too many preconceptions, because everyone's going to think about books differently. Like, we all have our own personal taste, and if you don't like a book that loads of other people are liking, like, don't feel bad about it. Or equally, if you like a book that loads of people are slating, you know, you get that with like the Colleen Hoover books, for instance, because a lot of people that slate her books, which some of the points, you know, I get it, like questionable morals maybe with some of the writing, so I totally understand why people don't gel with it. But I also think that some of that comes from romance authors, particularly romance authors often get quite a lot of slack, and I'm not sure that's fair, because, you know, those books aren't of less value than like a really, like, I don't know, literary classic. Books are to be enjoyed. So yeah, just make sure that you are protecting your own relationship with books, because that's the most important thing. But keen to hear your thoughts. Let me know what you guys thought of these 2 books, if you have read them.
There's the market on weekdays, selling every fruit and vegetable known to man. The tattoo parlour, with the guy outside who got drunk and now can't remember why he chose I Love Ken.
It's actually the next day. It's now Saturday morning. I took the rest of Friday to have a bit of chill time because I am due my period imminently, so I'm pretty tired. So I just watched Notting Hill, which was lovely. It was quite spontaneous. I'm not very good at spontaneously watching movies. I feel like there's something I need to plan because for some reason I can easily like commit time to read or even watch a series, but a movie feels like, I don't know, too much of a time commitment for me. But I love a classic Hugh Grant kind of nostalgic feel-good film, so that was very enjoyable. And I also read a good chunk of this, so I thought I'd give you an update to round off this vlog. I've not finished it. I'm at 134 pages, so probably about a third of the way through, maybe a bit over, and still really enjoying it. It definitely is a bit of a comfort read. I'm loving the witchiness of it actually. I specifically like the modern witchiness. It feels like something that could actually be real, if that makes sense. Like it doesn't feel like it's really like supernatural. It doesn't feel very like high fantasy, or I think because it is set in like the real world. I just love that take on it, and I love the fact that she's as a witch, and witches are like really connected with nature, and I love how she's exploring that. And it's basically just a very charming read. I mean, I'm going through it pretty quick. I'm probably going to finish it before we technically in October, but that's okay. I really wanted to get around to reading this one. So yeah, at the moment I recommend, if you want to know my final thoughts and my ratings and stuff, then you can get that on my Substack. My members get a monthly roundup of everything I'm reading. So this will be potentially, probably in the September one now. Might even knock another book off the top spot of my favourite book of the month, because I read another mystery this month that I did very much enjoy. I gave 4 stars, but this one, I don't know, it's a bit different. I really am enjoying it, so I might knock that one off, but we'll see. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this reading vlog. I love filming these. They're actually one of my favourite things to film. I know that not everyone on my channel is as much into reading or bookrooms, and book content might not be what you want to see, but I sometimes have to film things just that I love, even if it doesn't mean it get the same views as some of my other videos. But I might be wrong, you know, more of you guys might want to see this than I think, so do let me know if you'd like to see more of this kind of content. And I hope you guys have a lovely rest of your Sunday, and I will see you soon.